Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon. The Georgia Bulldogs, the number one team in the country, haven't lost a game since, what was it, 2020, 2021 or whatever? 2020? Yeah. 2020 against these Florida Gators.
That was the last regular season loss, yeah.
Yeah. They only open up as 14.5-point favorites. And I'm sitting here thinking that is a sketchy little line, but it does show you the value that Brock Bowers has on this team. Now, I don't want to necessarily talk about this game because we're going to talk about this game all week, but I want to hear from you, a Georgia fan and someone who loves Brock Bowers. How big of an impact over this next 4-week stretch, which is going to be the toughest of Georgia's season, where you play Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, how big of an impact is he going to have? I mean, are we going to see Georgia struggle during this run?
Well, here's the thing. I do think it's funny now that unintentionally, I think some people might be, stoking the Kirby Smart flame a little bit, that he's had trouble finding inspiration for these guys all season. And I feel like now, like, are people really starting to give Georgia that 7-5 type of fuel again? I don't know. Maybe. I don't really believe in bulletin board material. I'm more of a, if you need motivation for a football game, you already lost. But it's definitely real for players if you're on the field. Anyways, it's a big deal. You're losing the best player in the country, in my opinion. Caleb Williams this year is shown to be very human. Michael Penix did not have a great week last week. And I'm not here to compare and contrast all these players, but I think in terms of –
QBs aside, Brock Bowers is the best. We can just say that. I mean, the most valuable you can argue about because of the positional value, but just pure players – he's probably the best player in the country.
He's an NFL player on the field.
And then QB's aside, he's the best player.
He's been an NFL player since he stepped on campus. Like, he is a grown man and has been since he came out of the womb. And that's the thing, man, is he's so hard to game plan for. And you talk about what he brings to the team. Not only is he just so dynamic in the pass game, and not only can he get you a big chunk play when you really need it, but the distraction that he creates and the fact that you have to account for him, that really takes away a lot of what you can do. But if you've watched Georgia this year, you've seen they've spread the ball around. They've been a very pass-heavy team, which is kind of surprising. But I don't think their ship is sunk without him, first of all. And second of all, we've seen this kid is clearly not human. So the 4 to 6 weeks of tightrope surgery, I would probably lean closer to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. I think because you're also looking at the 5th week, which the 6th week. The 6th week is going to be your SEC championship game. And this is the one thing I will say, just given the natural landscape, I think if hypothetically LSU or Alabama were to beat Georgia on a neutral field, which isn't really a neutral field at the end of the season, they're probably going to hop over them. And I just don't, and maybe even an SEC team doesn't even get into the playoff if everyone goes undefeated. So I think you got to probably win the SEC. You don't have to win all these games these next 4 weeks, but you got to win the SEC. I think to get into the playoff.
We'll see, because we do this every year, man. And I say it every year. Everybody wants to have these conversations about schedule strength and ranked wins and ranked teams and stuff. There's like last year, Tennessee fans said, "Oh, we got a ranked win. We beat Florida." Well, Florida finished 6-7. Yeah, Florida was ranked at the time. That's not a ranked win. They finished 6-7. You look at Georgia's schedule: Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee. And I mean, Tennessee may not be ranked at the end of the year. Florida might be ranked at the year the way they're playing. Kentucky. Georgia might have a handful of pretty good wins. And if you look at a team like Michigan, I don't think Michigan will have any of the wins that Georgia will.
We also don't even know if Michigan's going to be alive by the end of the year. They might be bowl banned.
Yeah, they might be bowl banned. Wouldn't that be something?
I don't think it's out of the realm. I mean, possibility. This thing gets weirder and weirder by the day. And everyone, like, when they first hear these things, they're like, "Oh, there's nothing there." And then, like, a detail every single day just keeps getting.
Did you see the laminated plate?
Yeah, and then it's like, and you're like, "All right, this is kind of not right."
This is like Astros, like Spygate.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, well, maybe. I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities, and that definitely throws a wrench into their plan, because Michigan could end up there, play pissed off, go out there and beat Ohio State, keep them out of the Big Ten championship, go beat Penn State again. They're both out of it. So there is scenarios that, and like, this is one thing that I also hate when you do these kind of conversations in October, is everyone just assumes all these teams are going undefeated.
Oh yeah. What are you going to do if we have 6 undefeated teams? Well, it never happens. And it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's like by the end of the year, we'll have 1 undefeated team. Like, that's just usually how it works. So teams are going
to Washington almost lost to, oh my God, Arizona State last week.
Oklahoma almost lost to UCF, and Texas almost lost to Houston. Like, we almost had, and UNC lost to Virginia. Like, we almost had a upset of the week last week, and we have 5-6 more weeks left, and we have conference.
And Penn State just lost. Okay, yes, but anyways, back to the original point. Yeah, I do think it'll be. I do think it is interesting though. Michigan's 0-6 in their last 6 bowl games, by the way,
I'm going to
just because
ask you
they.
straight up, though, here, Jake, before we wrap up this segment. Does Georgia go undefeated against Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you can. I think that the sum of the parts. I think Georgia has so many weapons, and I think a lot of them are very underrated. There's no replacing Brock Bowers, but there is. There are ways to reconstruct your game plan, and I have more faith in Kirby Smart to do that more than anybody. Oscar Delp is a great young player. Lawson Lucky is going to be a really, really good tight end one day. He has a little bit of Bowers in his game in terms of just physical dominance. But nobody's Brock Bowers, and that's fine. And you know who knows that is Kirby Smart, and he's going to come up with a game plan to work around that weakness, and he's going to construct something. And I think they're going to come out unscathed.
I lean towards yes, simply because I don't think any of those 4 teams are that good. I think Ole Miss is the best of the bunch, and I think Georgia, they play that game at home, right?
Yeah, we got Missouri at home too.
Yeah, I just think Georgia, Ole Miss is the best of that bunch. You have that game at home. I think they win that. I think they beat
He might
Florida.
be back. He might be back by then too. I mean,
yeah, and it depends if he's back. I do think if Brock Bowers is out in the SEC championship, I think they will lose to whoever they play. That's the game that I think it would actually really matter. But I think they can get through these 4 weeks. And I feel like I'm leaning towards he would probably be able to play in that game. We'll see. But that's the one game that I think you'd actually, you'd have your
if they sit him out that whole time too. They also play Tech, and like they're not going to bring him back. His first thing back is not going to be Tech. Like no way. I just don't believe that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, but I think that's really what you're worried about. If you're worried about Georgia at all, which, I mean, how could you be worried? I mean, I think Carson Beck's really good, and I think this defense steps up with Brock Bowers out, and I don't think the 4 teams they play this week are on the same level as Georgia. So I'm with you. I think they come out and skate. I think they still do run the table. That SEC championship game will be interesting. Coming up after the break, we're going to give some early week leans on our best bets.